have slagged Adam Reynolds off loads for not running enough, and famous legendary halfbacks basically call him shit because he doesn't run enough. But I think when he's got Cody Walker next to him, he doesn't want to run all the time. He wants to organise, and he's got a great kicking game. But when he does pick and choose his moments, he's so clever and he can execute that it really is. He can do some good stuff. And it was a big, big play at that time as well. And I do think it was a real important part of the game switching around and the Rabbitohs going from being in the game and creating to being on the front foot and dominating when Reynolds started to make the right choice consistently, and with Cody Walker out around him and Damien Cook out of dummy half electric, I just think their attack is so exciting at the moment.
Yeah, although I have to disagree. I think Tarpan's try was better than Cook's, even though Cook's was great as well.
Yeah, I agree, and also Tom Davies was better than both of them, so whatever. I think the bench was better for the Rabbitohs on balance than the bench for the Eels, but on top of that, you probably had maybe the two best starting front rows all season. I think the drop off of both these sides between the starting props and the bench props has been quite noticeable, but Koala Matungi has eaten away at that gap for the Rabbitohs in his performances in the last 6 weeks or so, which I don't think you've seen the same from the Eels, personally.
No, you're right. They did appear quite desperate to get Paolo back on, didn't they? Mm. And I think he probably came on a little bit earlier than he might have wanted to. And towards the end, you could tell he was blowing a bit because I think he'd been on for like 28 minutes at that point, and he was, he's not a guy who generally does big minutes, is he? So, and yeah, I think the score blew out at the end because they were pushing it and as you say, making mistakes that they might not make in a normal game. But obviously, it was sudden death, so you do what you need to do. But yeah, it's good. 2 good games.
Yep, definitely. It was the women's NRL round 2 of fixtures in the sort of short round robin format that they operate. It was the Warriors 12, the Roosters 22, so a little bit of pride restored for the eastern suburbs there. And Dragons 4, Broncos 18, as the women continue to show the men how it's done in Queensland. So that is the NRL results caught up. We're now going to make our predictions, which includes the Challenge Cup final. Right, Al, so we'll start with the Super League predictions because those games happen on Tuesday and Thursday, respectively. I find it a bit weird that they didn't put Hull against Huddersfield on Wednesday and have Hull KR Salford in a television spot, but they didn't, so that's how we're going with it. But we'll do that first, and then we'll have a bit of a focus on the Challenge Cup final. So let's whiz through these Super League games. Tuesday, 2 p.m. Hull KR not happy about not being televised again and being in the early slot when people are still at work and school. So hopefully the letter they've written to the RFL will turn that situation around, but they'll have to get through this week. They're playing against Salford, a Salford side that are mixing and matching somewhat, and let's be fair, weakened from their best side. Which way do you think it's going to go?
The game before a cup final, I'm going to go for the opposition, so I'm going to say KR, but not convincingly, KR by 4.
I think that Salford will have 3 or 4 spots maybe on the. I'm thinking around the back row, potentially, and maybe bench forwards to battle out for it. And then there'll be people playing for contracts and stuff for next year. I don't think I'm writing Salford out of this. I'm going Salford by 10.
Okay.
Hull FC versus Huddersfield, 5:30 on Tuesday. Sky televised game. Hull FC are expected to have quite a few more resources back in this one than last week as they're on the mend. What do you think?
2 teams who are well, the loser of this is definitely out of it mathematically, even if they're not now. No confidence, but I'm going to say Huddersfield by 10.
And just because you're saying Huddersfield, I think I'm going to say Hull FC, because it's a coin flip game for me, and it's why not? Hull.
Yeah.
Hull by 2. Okay, the final game is one with huge playoff implications as 5th place Warrington face 4th place Leeds, but of course Leeds have got 2 eyes on the Challenge Cup final and might be playing a 16-year-old debut in this game, whereas Warrington have one focus, and that's getting back into the top 4. So I'm saying Warrington by 20.
Yeah, Warrington very comfortably. Yeah, Leeds are playing all the kids, so Warrington by maybe as much as 30.
Okay, another massive playoff implication game on Thursday, 5:30 p.m, and the losers of Warrington Leeds will be paying keen attention to this one, as it's Wigan versus Catalans. I really don't know which way to go on this one. When Wigan played Catalans last time, I tipped Catalans, but then Wigan turned up and performed on the day. I'm not 100% certain if Wigan are going to have any more components of the Golden Edge back in place. I think they're still on self-isolation for this one, which means I think when it comes into the shootout stakes, Catalans might have a bit more attacking power than Wigan, but Wigan's defence is outstanding. I'm just going to back my team. Wigan by 2.
If in doubt. Catalan in good form, scoring plenty, even against the tough Wigan defence. I'm going to stick with Catalan by 6.
Okay, and then in the final game, I'm not going to mess around. Saints by 20. It's Saints versus Wakefield, by the way, 7:45 p.m. on Sky on Thursday night.
Yeah, a repeat of last week's fixture. Why this couldn't be the non-televised game, I don't know. St Helens by 20. They're not going to make the same mistake this week.
I think they were thinking that Hull FC had the week off, hadn't they? They would have done.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah.
And Huddersfield had played the early game on the Thursday, so they thought both teams would have enough time to be a good matchup on the Tuesday. But ultimately, it looks a bit strange now. And why would you not want to see the cup final tied before the cup final? But of course, it won't be the cup final side that play, will it?
No, far from it.
But we're now going to talk about the Challenge Cup final. It's a 3 p.m. kickoff on BBC One on Saturday, the 17th of October. It is Leeds with plenty of recent history in the Challenge Cup, including 2 wins in the last 5 seasons. Salford haven't been to Wembley in 51 years. Does that make a difference to the outcome of this match at all, Alan? Do we think, or shall we get the poll results before we?
Yeah, let's read the poll results because they give context to my answers.
Okay, so 65% of our voters went with Salford, whereas only 35% went with the Leeds Rhinos. Yeah. So basically 2/3ish Salford.
Yeah. I voted Salford, and I'm going to stick to my guns. And it is purely because I want them to win. I want a different winner. I want their kind of success story to result in a trophy. The kind of build up from last year's grand final and etc. I think Ian Watson deserves it, frankly. So yeah, for me, I'd love Salford to win this one. It won't be much in it, even if Salford do win. I'm going to go Salford by 2.
For the reasons you've explained, I would similarly love Salford to win this one, but I think Leeds will, and I think Luke Gale's going to be absolutely unbearable. He's going to play well.
Everything tells me that Leeds should win it, but God, I'd love it if Salford did.
What I just think is Leeds' forwards are playing the best they've played all year, and that
Yeah, you don't need to apologise or seemingly apologise for it. It's the entirely sensible choice, but that doesn't mean I want it to happen.
Yeah, I think they're playing low error rugby, but it doesn't mean that they're not creating opportunities. I think they're controlling the pace of the games that they play in. I think the one thing about that makes me think Salford have a chance is Salford have this tenacity, this togetherness. That means they stay in games, and if they can stop Leeds scoring when Leeds, I think, will be on top for much of the game, they can keep it together defensively, then you would always think Lussick out a dummy half, or Brown with something clever that is spotted, or Inu with a bit of power. I think Sargentson not getting a ban is huge. Whether or not Evalds is fit to play fullback and Sargentson plays in the centre, or Sargentson stays at fullback where he's played really well, I do think that's huge. I think that would have been a significant thing, just because I think the emotional ability of Dan Sargentson, but also you look through that side and you look at someone who's got solid experience of playing in big games. He's played in and won 2 grand finals. He's also played in and lost a grand final, all in the last few years. So that's important, I think, for Salford. Someone who's been on the big stage, experienced the big occasion. They've got a few players in that squad that do have a bit of that, especially because a lot of half the team played in the grand final last year as well. And other players in there have got experience of winning them. So I think that's important, and you can't. And I think that's another reason why 65% of people went for Salford, as well as wanting more people wanting Salford to win. I think people will look at that side and think they have got. You can't say that Leeds have got more proven winners in their side, because they just haven't. When you actually look through the sides.
No, not now.
No,
not now. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, it's going to be a Challenge Cup final like no other. I mean, it's going to be a very, very strange experience. But yeah, as always, I love the Challenge Cup, so I'm looking forward to it. But it's going to be a weird experience.
Yeah, well, strange, definitely well strange. One bad omen for Salford is Kevin Brown has played in 3 Challenge Cup finals for 3 different sides and lost on all 3 occasions. But they have got people who've won in Challenge Cup finals in Gil Dudson, Tyrone McCarthy, Lee Mossop, Callum Watkins, and Chris Wellham lost in his. But I'd love Salford to win for Watson to be rewarded.
Yeah.
Liam Moore's the referee, which a lot of people will have, doubtless Saints fans from last week and Hull fans from the last 3 years will have question marks over that appointment. I would say oftentimes the person who gets the Challenge Cup final is the referee who did the best in the semi-finals, kind of ignoring other performances to an extent. And of the 2 semi-finals, I think Liam Moore had a better game than Kendall did in his. I'm saying better, not that one of them are bad, So I think that's played a part in Liam Moore getting that gig, and it's his first big gig, and I think good luck to him, and I hope he's not a talking point.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I know we fans love to bag on referees. It's part of the joy of it, isn't it? But at the end of the day, I always want new referees to get these big gigs to kind of, because it's a pivotal and kind of defining moment of their refereeing career, isn't it? So I always want new faces to get these events, and I have no issue with Liam Moore, unlike some FC fans.
NRL week 3 of the finals. It is proper semi-final stage now. Lose and go home. The Storm versus the Raiders Friday at 9:50. That's being played up in Brisbane at Suncorp, and the Panthers versus the Rabbitohs Saturday at 9:50. Which way are you leaning on these, Al?
Again, I'm going to go with who I want rather than who I think will. So I'm going to go for Raiders and Panthers to get through to the final. Yeah,
I think the second one could be a real exciting game. But you can't back against the Panthers, given that they've been the best team all year, consistently.